I'd say it is a slow progress, and I think it's seeing the different levels of people doing fitness, the different variety of people training as well, and seeing not just new teenagers coming in the gym, but you have people in wheelchairs. I think we've got a couple of amputees, and then you've got the older generation who just want to do everyday movements again. And so I think people who struggle see that and be like, that's just motivating in itself. And you know, there's a saying that says if everyone's put their problems onto a pile, you'd be the first one to seek it out. And I think that reflects in the gym and then that makes people feel like actually they are doing okay. They're not as bad as they think they are. So even if it's physical or mental, and then through these communities, you realize someone else is going through the hell of it, but they're still here. And yeah, it's just a very underlining community of similarities in different forms. But you see each other, you see strangers with different disabilities and struggles, and you're like, okay, and they're lifting more than you or doing better, and you're like, okay, I'm not actually that bad. I can do better. I want to do that for myself.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Trauma, Training and Transformation, the space where we explore how movement heals the mind. I'm Dr. James Alder, and today we're going to explore how fitness can evolve from simply pushing the body to healing the mind. Joining me today is Charlie Blaxland, a performance coach, fitness instructor, who's took precision of physical training and turned it into a mindful practice for both mental and physical well-being. It's about balance, awareness, and the small acts of movement that help us to rebuild from the inside out. Charlie, thank you for joining us today. Just to introduce yourself to the audience, just tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on. As James has said, my name's Charlie, and I'm currently a PT working in different sections of potentially like strength training, or if it's just beginners or people just getting back in. Always been a passion, hence trying to get into it. But I learned a lot more about not just weightlifting, but how this we're going to talk about today, how it relates to your mental state in the trauma and commandos. Unfortunately, I didn't pass the training, and I took my win on that one, but it took away a lot, and I hope that's what I can actually relate to a little bit more today as well.
Appreciate that, mate. And nothing to feel bad about there, mate. I mean, it's a credit to you for putting your name in the hat and testing yourself against the extremes of the Royal Marine Commando training course. So you have a background in structured fitness that taught you discipline areas, but there's a moment that you shifted from the discipline side, from performance to purpose. So when did fitness stop being a strength and start being a way of survival for you in the gym?
More or less I think it's hard to say, it's both physical and mental workouts are entirely different and meant for different things. I think when you're to a point mentally where you can't do too much, you're a bit lost, the motivation to work out isn't there. I think everyone can agree that it goes, and a lot of us will, I've done it as well, be like, I'm not going to the gym today, I'm not training.
Yeah, I think that is a big thing. The motivation of, if it's not in your routine, deciding to go is a challenge. And then if you've had a session, if you've not done anything for a while, the pain the next day, especially if you're suffering with DOMS, the motivation to then get back up and do it again can be quite challenging.
Yeah, definitely. But then that's where, when you asked about it's changing, I think I was quite fortunate. Wanted to get into the gym from when I was like 12, 13 years old. And I loved it at first. But then after a while of missing those days, you do feel regret. You feel like, I'm not putting in the work, and something, nothing changes. So you've got to do something. And I always tell everyone, you've got to do yourself. You've got to put the work in for yourself. Even if it's, don't want to go to the gym, but you turn up anyway, not really having a plan, but you turn up. That's the first step. You've done the biggest thing. I said quite early on, I think I hit a wall where I was going through a lot. We all do. You lose sight of it a little bit, but you force yourself to go for a week. Then you say, was it 19 days, 20 days for a create habit? And then it becomes automatic. And then and to those who do go to the gym when they're struggling still, it's a release. It's a moment where you feel present in the moment. There's nothing else to think about. And then you can put that work in. And it can work as a motivator, but after a while, that's discipline. It's just second nature to you. And you know that you're going to feel better afterwards. And a lot of people are still trying to learn that. But I was quite very fortunate of being in the gym early on, going through all your teenage stuff, and then using that as a tool of a motivator to do better as well.
No, very much so. I mean, we have a lot of these people use social media now and watch motivational videos on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. And motivation is a really big buzzword in the fitness industry, but you mentioned it, the word that's not often used, and it's very key, and that's discipline. Motivation's also a part of your goal mechanisms, and you have goals, but you still got to have the discipline to get up in the morning, do the workout, and make it a routine. Yes, you've got to go through a period of time before it becomes habit forming, and you've said that. But when you work in the gym environment, do you see people who struggle with that routine building?
Yeah, absolutely. Every day, I think it would be a rare day to go a day without someone saying that they struggled to get into the gym today, or are they haven't come for the last week, and might not openly say why, but you can just tell. But you give heart to them. You're like, you're here though. That is a principle. And I think with, as you said, social media and trends, that is a benefit of social media, that there is sort of the hype behind the fitness. It's become a huge thing in the last sort of 5 years, ever since, well, COVID, when people were getting outside and doing more. And I think people are, it is a boundary of, sometimes is it discipline or is it a trend? And yeah, you can make benefit of that. But with the social media, at least it gets them in the gym. It does something. But yeah, every day, I'd say that a lot of my clients, they don't want to be there sometimes, but they do it, and that's why we're here. That's why they come to us. I think a lot underlining, it's not just people saying, oh, they want to look a certain way or be big, be strong, but I say a good majority of my clients are coming for their own mental health benefit, and they've seen that improvement.
You'll have some clients who will want to do some functional movements, or they want to do circuit training, or they want to be some form of overloads workouts. And it's great. You will have clients like that, but you'll also have clients who are not that experienced. And it's actually just physical movement, being in that environment, that can be the turning point really in their own physical development. But equally to that, mentally, it's also that hurdle that they've got to be able to overcome. There's going to be
Yeah,
days that they don't
definitely.
want to be there. Do they openly talk about that? I mean, I don't want you to talk
Yeah,
about.
no, of course. Obviously, I won't name names and call anyone out, but there is definitely that implication of, you do feel like you're an ear for them, and that's all right. It's nice that they feel they're comfortable enough to do that. I think if they're still struggling, then they don't always have that person to talk to. So if it comes out naturally, what exercise does, it releases that negative energy off you, and sometimes that comes off as just wanting to vent to that person.
Do you see any transitional changes once they're there as your
Yeah,
clients?
yeah. I've had a funny one where they vented and it's a really nice, but then they start talking about things they've been getting up to instead of themselves, and then that's when you see a switch, being like, okay, you're focusing on what you're doing, as well outside the gym as well as in, and seeing that them just become that little bit happy, a little more chirpy. That's all it is really.
But you work both as a PT instructor, but also you coach individual clients. Do you see the difference in both physical output between the two environments, but also any changing in their mental demeanor and how they behave? Are they quiet? Are they moody? Do you see a change in that period of time that you've worked with them? But also the general environment in the gym, with it being busy, is that still recognizable, seeing that transitional change?
I think in an open gym, when it is busy, that's harder to see. I think you see the people who are there, then you say hello and to anyone who says hello. And so in a bigger environment, when it's a busy gym at 6:30, everyone's there from after school, after work. You don't really get that sort of sense of community that they're open, obviously, in that situation. But then working at that gym and training at that gym, it makes you a little bit more involved with the members. And so you do realize there are these little pockets of people that all do help each other. And so there is an underlying sense of community in there. But I'd say it's a lot more noticeably physically and, well, emotionally, when it's one-to-ones, because you have that sort of time of day where you're with them and it's just them, no one else around them.
One thing I've noticed in my time being a fitness instructor, working in the gym, living in a gym, because of use of technology, people wearing headphones when they train individually, that kind of stuff, that sense of togetherness, sharing ideas, helping each other, spotting that kind of stuff. Togetherness in the gym was part and parcel of going there, really.
Yeah,
I feel
definitely. I
sometimes
couldn't
that,
agree with you more.
do you think that's lost? Do you think we're losing some of that, or do you think it just depends on the group?
I think it's probably a bit of both. You have the older lot that have been there for a few years. So you have, people like myself in their 20s. You have people older, you have dads, mums, and so I would say it depends on the ages and the groups and stuff like that, and also how frequent people come. I see with the younger lot that I do the weight inductions for, you talk them through everything. There's nothing. There's no. I understand that there's some nerves to going through them because it is, as you know, it's a big gym. But I would say just from looking at the younger lot, you don't seem to have many of them talking to each other. You have friends come in together and train together, which is very good as well. But I don't think just get random strangers forming little friendship groups and having knowing each other. So I think, yeah, I'd say it's a little bit lost in the ones that are coming into the gym because I think that is, like I said earlier, a little bit more of a trend. But people have been there and they're there for themselves, not to impress others. Then they're the people that all sort of come together.
Yeah, I mean, back in my introduction to the gym was you'd have a corner where all the big guys are hitting weights, and when you were
Mm.
smaller, especially a younger person in the gym, you're quite intimidated by that environment, so you tend to stay away, or if you got a bit of confidence, you might approach them and ask them for advice. In the gym that we both go to, I don't see that a lot. Maybe some people are very close, so they do communicate, but I don't see that sharing of uh, advice, spotting
Yeah.
somebody and telling what they could do better. We seem to be a little bit quieter now. Not that there's anything wrong with that. People are entitled to be in
Mm.
their own, but I think we lose a little bit of the support, the mental health community aspect that the gym used to be.
Yeah, I would definitely say that's one thing being working there. People who work there, we could collectively do better. I could do better as well, is making those relationships to the members in the way I have of training there. When you train there every day at the same time, you do end up spotting people and
Yeah, yeah.
it's very rare. I would agree it is very rare nowadays compared to when I first went to gym at 13. And there is less of that people sort of mind their own business. But if you go at the same times and you end up over time, you're making those connections. You do have those. But us getting a collective as workers, that's the one connection we're missing. Because I think when you're saying about you first joining the gym, people who work there were very much involved in what the members were doing and all had the same sort of similar goal and mindset. But there's a massive variety of that now.
Oh, very much so. And there's nothing wrong with people who you train, go in and get out. It means they're purposeful. They might only have half an hour to train. It's in their lunch break, that kind of stuff. I think also using headphones when they train, it's a good way of staying at a pace if they're running or they want to just listen to some music as a background so that they've got some, I guess, distraction instead of the mind taking them away. But I think that's something, obviously, when I first started the gym, there was no headphones. Just got on with it. They'd have loud music. Sometimes the music was questionable, but
Yeah,
that was back in the 80s, 90s. So it's, I'm not quite sure you could listen to that same music now. It was different, all I could say. But, the science backs, the use of exercise. It increases our dopamine, brain-derived neurotropic factor. So it literally rewires our brain for calm and focus, right? So exercise that works. But on the mental side, we need to think about being around fitness, not just the exercise itself, which is key, but the environment that we're doing in. So you were operating in a commercial gym, which is a safe environment, but you've got different ability groups. There's all different activities going on. So how can you then help them to ensure that the balance that they're doing is both good for the body, but also good for the mind, so that they stay connected and return the next day?
I think it's not bad to say that fitness is a lifestyle. When you increment one thing in the fitness, you end up watching other things as well. And I think that's what joins everyone together. It's not necessarily different groups of what everyone's doing, and the benefits, what they're doing it for, mentally, physically, physique, how they look. And so those little things behind watching your daily habits and uh, all trying to be a little bit disciplined. I think that's where fitness and the mental side connects, because it changes, as you said, touched on as well. It changes the whole mindset. It releases endorphins, feeling relaxed. But everyone who trains knows that in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just going or making sure you're getting the 10,000 steps in a day, those little things connect everyone together, and that's what joins both the mental and physical side together.
Very much so. 10,000 steps was created so to get people out and doing something.
Exactly.
The reality of changing health issues that an individual might be suffering with, getting someone to move is amazing. So setting a task of 10,000 steps, walking for an hour, come to the gym and being in a class. All these things are very positive. Being one with nature, getting some fresh air, walking around, or going to a club and doing something. It's the movement that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is, I think I don't know if you've watched it yourself, but there's the video of online about a Navy SEAL talking about his one trick, which was making a bed. and that making the bed sets the tone because you do the little things you don't want to do, and then you end up feeling great about that. So and seeing aims like within the fitness as well, and then one small movement of okay, I'm gonna eat this many calories, and then you end up being like okay, I can actually go for that walk. I'm gonna go for that walk. You know, it just becomes automatic, and that's when the discipline sets in.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, you talk about Marine. So David Goggins, for people who may not know, is an extreme athlete. Served in the U.S. military. Extreme is a word that you can't use lightly with him. Doing ultra marathons, push his body to the limit. But during that experience, he also pushes his mind to the limit, and he doesn't accept failure. Now that's extreme. No one's expecting anybody to do that. But equally, doing the park run on a Sunday morning could be the big challenge for some people. Participate in that is not a bad starting point, or even go to the pool. There's loads of good activities that can be utilized on the physical side, but then it's also a good way of unloading some of that emotional toil that athletes suffer both in competitive sports, but day-to-day people suffer with work. They had a bad day at work, they've got children, or everyday lives kind of stuff. They come to the gym and you get the opportunity to work with a number of these people. Do you feel that they transfer some of that frustration into the training?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's for anyone who has ever trained without headphones, and then like yourself when you first like going to the gym, there's a difference because you have to use something, and so I think that's where people aren't developing as well as they want to because it's so focused on having that music and draining out the mind. They don't let the mind run, and so when we're training, it has to be a mindset. It does have to be you focusing on the things that you want to get out, not maybe thinking really specifically, but those emotions that you don't necessarily feel or focus in everyday life when you're walking around or you're showing up for work. They have to go somewhere. They can't, and but then sometimes it just comes too much for people to, and they have to take a step back. But then they realize the fitness is the one thing that was I'm releasing something.
So talking about the clients that you have, do you have a mixed bag of abilities, like new people, people who trained for a while?
Yeah, I do. I have a variety. Mothers who've just become mothers. I have dads who've been out of fitness for ages and realized they wanted to get a bit fitter, and that's really nice because it's it comes from a different aspect of I don't want to just be fit, but I don't care about what I look like. It's my mentality. I want to just feel better, which is also but that's more in my sort of older clients, and I'd say younger ones who are just getting started are quite excited to get in, but they are also have had that drop of not training for a long time because of certain circumstances as well, and so for them it is that partial mentality. You can see that more in them come out when they're training compared to the older lot who know they just want to get fitter, but they don't care what it looks like, so they're more comfortable. If that makes sense.
No, very much so. So people who suffer with body image issues, it could be anybody, male, female, maybe impacted by lack of confidence, self-efficacy, because of what society expects people to look like this day and age. It can have an impact on their well-being. Movement is a medicine, and it can
Absolutely.
be soothing and a therapy for many people, young and old. Have you got any kind of stories that you're willing to share that you've seen that sense of impact, growth, and any change any of your clients have gone through?
Yeah, I'd say I won't name names, but one of my first clients, he's still with me now. He mentally he'd gone through a lot, and you could tell that he was just coming to for his head, and but he knew that getting fitter, getting healthier would help, but he didn't at first really care about that. It was just he had to get out. He didn't get out at all. I think he really struggled, so he used training as that medicine, and then just coming to my sessions and being like, oh yeah, I went for a walk, and I was like, good, just get out. That's good. That's what we like. We keep moving. And I think that there's a saying, go, you can't accomplish anything stuck in your behind closed doors, and that really showed. And then over time, you saw he stopped. His mental state became better. He became healthier, and he was starting to eat well. He will, like the rest of us, he'll admit, he'll be like, yeah, I had pizza last night, but I'm like, it's balanced. You can't be extreme and be like healthily mentally. I think when you, especially with a diet, diet is 80%, but at the same time, if counting calories, you can have pretty much whatever you want in those calories as long as you're hitting those macros. And so if that means you can have a pizza, have a pizza. But you're setting that balance of I can eat what I want to an extent, and he's become just like more confident and comfortable. And I think it was one I mentioned earlier, and he now loves talking about his football, loves talking because he's joined the football team as well. And yeah, complain about other players, but who doesn't? Um, yeah, it all comes out. And but seeing him from when I first started with him to now, it's huge change. And he knows he's not there yet, like where he wants to be. But how much progress he has made, I don't think he realizes is incredible. And you can just see him glowing a little bit more, have a little bit more life back in him. Because I think when you stop moving, so does your mind. Well, no, your mind starts. Sorry, but when you're moving, the mind slows down because it all comes out, and it's in a healthier form.
It makes you more present, right? More
Exactly.
self-aware, and that is the true essence, really, of transformation from where you first started through that evolution of change, both mental and physical. And then you see person, still the same person shape-wise, but actually the person becomes more confident, more self-aware, and then is able to then interact more freely. And this just
Yeah.
shows that when we do movement, it does become a language for us to heal ourselves, self-healing, healing in the moment, but also gives the person the belief that they can do anything they want. Eating pizza on a cheat night, that kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Reverting back to something you mentioned earlier about present, I think there is that big correlation of when I mentioned having that connection with the clients one-on-ones when it's nothing else. It's just them. It's the same form of training without they didn't train without headphones. So there is that presence of being in the
Yes.
moment. And I'd always say I think it's really good to listen to all this, these podcasts and listen to being like, oh, focus on when you're meditating, focus on the breathing and focus on being calm. But I think people are missing the point of being present. And I found my headphones, fun enough, got stolen in the gym. I left the case and they just disappeared. Since then, I haven't been able to have my headphones, earpods in, going around town, and when I go to the shop. And I've noticed that change, that you become a little bit more fluid in what you're doing. You don't think as much, and then you can sit on your own, and so it's no longer fitness and exercise, but it's the movement.
Yes.
Um, and being present in that moment. I think all these meditations are pretty beneficial. But if you're going to meditate, focus on being present, focus on the sounds around you, and just being in that moment, and let everything else run. I've said this to a couple of my clients. Your mental state is a bit like a dam, it's like a river, should we say? And when you distract yourself and you prevent yourself from feeling the feelings and going through what you're going through, it builds up. It builds up, and so that could be listening to music, going out to the pub, even if it is going to the gym, but there for the music, and to get a good pump on. But if you don't sit with yourself and be present and listen to the birds chirping, or even if it's just go out in the countryside, that river will just flow and that will stop. And I think that's why being present is so important in fitness and outside of fitness.
It's really powerful, mate. Thank you for sharing that. We all do exercise for various reasons. People who do CrossFit, or they may do overload training, or doing some kind of Olympic lifting. They're already purposed in what they're doing. They're very mindful of, they've got a routine, a trainer. But working with clients, how this guided you through your own personal journey, and how has it changed you? Or has it changed?
Definitely, I think the taking aside of necessarily changing, but learning about fitness, you realize that it's a black hole. There's so much to learn, but then it's not just learning the fitness; it's learning yourself. And I think in order to become healthy and happy with yourself, you need to be able to do that. And I'd say that a lot of what I implement in my clients, and this is why I have a passion for it, is because I can slip in those little bits I've learned in a just another way of wisdom instead of a way of talking about me, and just create that space for them to talk. So wasn't fortunate enough to have that, and so I learned quite early on that it's just nice to move, essentially and to keep busy. So I got to admit, I love being a bit of a workaholic, but it's that movement, and now I'm doing something I love, and it doesn't feel as much as work. But it's a small implications of you have more faith in the client. You're not there just for the money. You're not there because you love fitness, but because of what I've learned, especially, I can in my own way help that person, even if I'm just showing up as a front for fitness. I'll always be like, if you need something, message me. that because it does openly create that bond. But again, anything what I've learned, and so I like to continue that way. And so even with training techniques, a lot of my techniques and what I know is from what I've researched and what I've tried, use myself as a bit of a guinea pig for certain things. So not just in fitness advice, but also mental advice. From my background, I like to think that I can implement that, and that feels so. I've gone from being the one who's struggling, being in their shoes, to figuring it all out. Not figuring it all out, but figuring as much as I can out. With support friends as well. And it's just that instead of just being like, oh yeah, another rep. Oh yeah, I'm glad you're here. It's like, oh no, you're here. That's good. That's what we like. And being able to just lay that off does something. I think. I couldn't say what, but that gives you that little bit of drive to do more, and then that way.
Thank you very much. What's key about this podcast is it's about people like yourself highlighting the challenges that individuals go through, the desire and the reasons why people turn to fitness or physical exercise or just movement of any kind of description to try and resolve the turmoil that mentally that they're going through. And it could be a bad day at work. It's nice that movement is a therapy for them instead of it another vice. What I like about also the gymnasium, the mixed ability groups is a pleasure to see. It's not just one size fits all. I think that's a key for healthy environments, especially for people who are maybe suffering with some form of mental health issue, being able to be involved in a safe space. Do you mind just touching on the gymnasium that you work at? And is it typical in all gyms?
I'd say it is a slow progress, and I think it's only something that happens naturally. You can't go in the gym and sort of expect to make friends, because some people you'll come near them and they're like, I'm working out on it, and it will something that happens naturally. The people you just see every day, you will, and then you learn they know someone else, and you get introduced, and then or you know someone else and you introduce them, and everyone, as you said earlier, everyone's doing a different thing, and the way that relays us to everyone else, through the people I've met, one might be a nutritionist, one's a massageist, one does yoga, and so okay, cool. So you're big in the sort of fitness industry as well. You've got passion for it, and then you've got people who have been ex-military like yourself, and people who work on security. So they have all some sort of movement where they have, fitness is required for in their life. And when that comes together, I've learned so much from people I know, and sort of I met a nutritionist, my nutritionist through the gym as well, and learned a lot about my own nutrition. I thought didn't know as I didn't know as much as I thought I did. Sorry, and I think that just changes that. It's a motivation to get back to the gym and to turn up, and you realize that people become friends and they end up messaging outside being like, I'm going to gym this time, I'm going to this, and as you touched on, seeing the different levels of people doing fitness, the different variety of people training as well, and seeing not just new teenagers coming in the gym, but you have people in wheelchairs. I think we've got a couple of amputees, and then you've got the older generation who just want to do everyday movements again. And so I think people who struggle see that and be like, that's just motivating in itself. And there's a saying that says if everyone's put their problems onto a pile, you'd be the first one to seek it out. And I think that reflects in the gym and then that makes people feel like actually they are doing okay. They're not as bad as they think they are. So even if it's physical or mental, and then through these communities, you realize someone else is going through the hell of it, but they're still here. And yeah, it's just a very underlining community of similarities in different forms. But you see each other, you see strangers with different disabilities and struggles, and you're like, okay, and they're lifting more than you or doing better, and you're like, okay, I'm not actually that bad. I can do better. I want to do that for myself.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the episode content, hit subscribe, leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. It only takes 10 seconds and really helps to grow my podcast. Leave a comment or DM me on @transformation through training. Knowing that I've got a gymnasium I can go to and feel safe is a big contribution of me feeling healthy today, which is massive. Just interacting with various people, you can see that they have their own issues going on and that escape is going to the gym, going on the running machine, headphones on, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I really enjoy is actually seeing there's no egos, there's no animosity, there's no hostility. It's people, it's like-minded people on reasons to be there, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what brings everyone together, and that's that sense of underlying community, even if you are new and you don't see that. And so within and watching and who want to join the gym, do remember that there is that, and I would agree, every gym, big or small, doesn't matter. There is always those members who have that same, are there for the same reasons or for the same reasons you are. And it's just finding those people, and that you'll actually just come together.
And I see, it's quite infectious. What I've learned over time is, I'm not saying anyone's done this to me, but I've taken other people's training movements and combined them with mine. Oh, I like that. I've never done that before. I'll use that next time. Yeah, there's no chance I'm doing that. I mean, it's a combination. Maybe the latter is what people think about me. I don't know. But it's good that you can be in that environment and share these ideas, even without connecting. I'd like us
Yeah.
to be more connected and communicate more. But, maybe that's more also a familiarity to, we're in a society at the moment coming out of COVID where people have been isolated, and maybe
I think that had a big impact, I
yeah,
think, on
very
people
much so.
being isolated from each other.
Yeah. So maybe that might take a little bit of time for people to, overcome that period of time. But as I said, it's a really safe environment. Now, I touched earlier on about David Goggins. He's an exceptional person, but there's many athletes. Matt Fraser from CrossFit, winning the CrossFit Games 5 times, I think, a great athlete. And then you've got Tour de France champions who've gone on and set records, operating at that level year on year. I don't expect our audience who are listening to this to feel like that they need to be the next, Bradley Wiggins or Matt Fraser. And they want to be the next Charlie Blackstone. Who knows? Everyone's a role model to somebody. And you
Yes.
can use them as motivation, of course you can. But you've got to find the discipline within to set yourself that
Yeah. And
target going and
make sure
return it.
you're doing it for you
Yeah.
and not for other people.
So let's make this
That's
practical
the
now,
trick.
right? Let's think about this.
Yeah.
How can we make a difference? So what daily habit or ritual would you keep that keeps you grounded mentally and physically that you could share with our audience today?
I'll say, ironically, it's actually making sure I get a moment in the day where it's just me. Whether it just be eating my foods out of a tub in the staff office, if there's a moment for me, then that's pretty much good for me. That makes me a little bit more present. And as like I touched on earlier, walking without headphones and doing things without headphones, massive different. And that's massively made me grounded lately. And just taking the time for you, doing what you want to do, even if you have a hectic day, make sure you find a minute on that day, even if it means you're with some mates and you just be like, oh, I want to go for a walk 5 minutes. Take that moment. If they're good enough friends, they're not going to judge you. And so that's my key at the moment with everything. Is just almost doing less, doing more. If that, it sounds very sort of a bit of an oxymoron there, and so I'll go into a little bit. But doing less is in the fact of always having something on, always having music on, and just do those small things. Even if it's just, I save the dish later, wash the dishes, make your bed in the morning. Just those little things that make you so grounded. Respect yourself enough to do the things you say you're gonna do, and that will make you really grounded as well.
No, beautiful, simple, real, isn't it?
Very
Beautifully
simple.
simple, productive, simple messaging to anyone who's listening really to the podcast. It proves consistency is just as powerful as intensity, because it's a routine, it's practical movements that make a key difference. And it's those repeated acts of intention that builds resilience, both mentally and physically, I would say. You touched earlier on about nutrition, and nutrition is part of our life. Of course it is. It's being aware of what we put in our body and how it can be used as fuel to train. And it's probably just as much actual physical output. But it's a balancing act because everyone, has a daily life and they've got to be able to get up in the morning, do a full day's work, or they've got children all day, or a combination of both. And then the last thing they're thinking about is the nutrition. Oh, then I'm going to go to the gym. Or actually, I'm going to go to my fitness class. So there's always a
Yeah,
list of things, right? But
always something.
what have you learned with your journey in relation to nutrition, how important it is, and then
I think,
moving
yeah,
up?
definitely. Growing up, I was a bit like every other kid, eat loads of junk food, go to the shop, buy a bag of crisps, can of Coke, not give a damn about what you're putting in your body. And then it wasn't until I tried losing some weight, and this was prior to my Marines training. I started training twice a day, 6 days a week. And what I was like, I've sort of dabbled a bit of diet, didn't really understand it. I didn't know what calories were, didn't know what macros were, had no clue how to track it. And I started tracking it and I got really into it. I became a little bit obsessed. It was to the little gram. I was weighing everything, and that's where it became a healthy habit. There came a point where I was like, oh, I want to now bulk. I can't, be out of the training. And I was just, I was now still built for as if I was for the military, not for just everyday life. And so I started going gym and trying to put on a bulk. And again, tracking the food, I got really into it. But I got a bit fed up, and I had the same food for 2 years, same 5 meals a day for 2 years. Obviously, up in the calories, just in the oils, just in what you're putting in it, cheese or whatever. And I went from 63 kg to 86. And towards that end, it became to the point it'd be too much, and I end up being it's sort of like I'd been pressuring myself too much to do it, to the point where I started eating everything and anything, and then end up putting the wrong kind of fat on. And then just mentally, this is again where I think mentally it's not just physically it comes into play, it becomes into your nutrition, so it can affect you massively and what you want to eat. That's not even going into the whole body dysmorphia subject, but having that, I just sort of, went loose at everything. I sort of hit a point where a wall mentally. I wasn't healthy in myself. I wasn't healthy what I was doing. And then I just sort of stopped eating. I came off nutrition massively. I knew it had been incremented over the last 4 years, the 3 years. The food was important, so I ate healthily, but I just ate one meal a day, pretty much. And I lost a lot of weight very, very quickly. I mean, it's only in the last, I'd say, 8 months, I've I've now got that healthy balance. Because I can eat what I want in moderation to my calories and macros. I keep an eye on those to make sure I'm healthy. Some days I'm going to go over my fats a little bit. Some days I'm going to go over my carbs. But as long as they're not going out of range too much and my calories are still being hit. And so if I'm with some friends and I walk out past the pub shop, I'll get a chicken burger. I don't, but it's moderation. And I think that makes it easier for yourself because it's less pressure. I think a lot of people struggle because they put so much pressure, they see other athletes and think they should be like that, or see someone in online, a bodybuilder, and think, oh, I should look like that, and then they become obsessed, and it becomes negative, and it's no longer a benefit. And so it's finding that balance. And it's underlining big journey actually in the last few years, and I never really thought about it to your question. But yeah, I've had an unhealthy and unhealthy in a subject of eating bad things, but unhealthy being too obsessed with it, and it's just finding what's right for you.
I'm sure the listeners would really appreciate just how you shared that journey with both the positive and the negative journey with food. Having a good understanding about nutrition, especially what you take in, what the macros, how you use it, and what the purpose are behind nutrition. It's not about dieting, it's ensuring that you're getting the right foods in so then your body can operate optimal in whatever it's doing. But when you do go up and down in that scale, you can have a really negative mental impact on you. And I feel because of your fitness background, it probably helped you to overcome that because of the reason behind it, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, and I always tell my clients if they always say I had this and they're sort of beating themselves up about it. I'm like, give yourself one treat a day as a reward for doing your calories. Obviously, don't go vast and eat a whole tub of Ben Jerry's, but save enough for a pizza that night. Save enough calories. Just save enough calories and have a treat. And it's okay. It's good for you. I think it's unhealthy to be so obsessed that you can't eat a single bad thing. I think your body does naturally need a little in moderation to those unhealthy things as well.
Knowledge is only going to help people knowing that they can still work out, have a cheat meal every now and then, or treat themselves in a way that's not going to be negative on them physically. So they can accept it and it's not necessarily pushing them down. And that's great advice. Another positive thing that you touched about earlier on was about breathing. I think breathing, breath work, mindfulness, these kind of things can help us get us in the moment for the training, but also de-escalation from training. What I do now in my as a coach at half time chat, also at the end of the full time, I get the players to take 3 deep breaths, have a moment, self-reflection, and then we start deconstructing the game or discuss what needs to change in the game. Equal to that, I also do that in my own officiating. Before I referee, I take a moment just to quiet my head so then I can go out and be in clarity of thought, be mindful of what my responsibilities and ensure that I can perform. I do the same at half time and full time just to allow myself to have to be proud of the physical exertion I've just been a part of, but also give my time for me to recover, both physically and mentally. And I think breathing is quite important. How do you see that transferred in the gym environment? Are we doing enough? Are athletes doing enough on that aspect?
I think breathing work and breath work and becoming mindful is, I would say, underrated in the gym. I don't think it's focused and used as much as it should be. It is a scientific study. It is there written down as proof that breathing and breath work is key to being grounded. There are different forms of breathing techniques you can do that ground you, and I always try and implement in my training with the clients uh, where to breathe from and how to breathe when you're breathing in, when you're breathing out on your exercises, because it's not just about putting in effort, but I think that helps relaxing the mind as well and opening up everything and relaxing. So using breath work inside the gym and in moments like yourself of clarity when you just need to ground yourself are big important. And I have been trying to implement, but I'm still yet to do a breathing course. I actually really want to do breathwork courses and learn a little bit more behind the benefits of breathing and how it can be used efficiently in the gym.
Thank you very much again. I think I talked earlier on and we discussed it a little bit about sharing ideas in the gym where, training partners or people in the gym share what they're doing. And one of the things that I was always taught when I first started training was we should breathe when doing exercise, breathe in, push out,
Yeah,
and to recover, that kind of stuff. I think unless you've taught that, that can always be a challenge on doing the exercise. You will always physically be able to do it, but are you
yeah,
doing it to the true benefit of
efficiently.
what you're expecting to achieve from that? People want to get bigger, but if you don't tie in the breathing to physical training, you're not going to get the full package.
Exactly. I mean, you've got, as you said, with the different training groups, but yeah, you've got the whole cardiovascular endurance, and then you've got muscular endurance, and knowing the difference, and then knowing that everything has a different technique to the prior. And even in running, finding a breath pattern that works for you. That means you can get as much lung capacity as you can, and it helps that endurance and helps the mind. I think we'll agree, when you're out of breath, it's horrible because your mind's racing, you don't know how to like concentrate. But when you've got that breath work in, you sort of forget you're doing the activity if it's running, for example, and you're more mindful. And it's all very natural, and then you can just put in that little bit extra bit and use the extra 40% that you always have left in the tank after you're done.
That's very true. I mean, when I was in the military, just being a soldier, you just get taught, "Right, you're going to run and then put that heavy pack on." And, you didn't think about
Yeah.
it, but no one's told me that before.
Yeah. And what's the difference? Like, oh, what do you mean there's a difference between breathing from my nose and my mouth?
By sharing that information, you become more efficient in your breathing, you become more athletic because you're able to control your breathing so you get the best outcome. And then when I was a physical trainer, I had to be able to run with these soldiers and instruct.
When you're running with
How
them.
can I
Yeah.
shout at these people and run at the same time? And that's a skill. And then transfer that to refereeing, it's very similar. You've got to be able to keep up with the play. If I'm refereeing at an eye level, these rugby players are sprinting full out, and you've got to be able to keep up with them. If there's a tackle and there's an offence, you've got to be there to control that. You've got to recover and you've got to do all those things. So breathing is very key, as much as the physical exertion. But also what all this does, breathing work, knowledge of nutrition, doing the movement, it makes you
Well, it's
healthy.
funny you say this actually. When you've linked them up like that, I went and watched a talk when I was learning a bit more about the fitness and PTing side of things, and it was on about longevity training, and they mentioned the four key things of longevity: your sleep, cardio, nutrition, and strength training, and that not just it makes you feel better, but it can scientifically increase your lifespan, especially if you increase, like you said about breathing, increasing your VO2 max. I can't remember if it was 2 or 10%, can add another a year onto your lifespan. And so it's not just beneficial for your mindset, but physically and your actual longevity of your life. People don't realize, people aren't taught this.
It's a point, it's like sharing that knowledge. I mean, people are very intelligent. You've got various forms of methods to research, ChatGPT, TikTok, Instagram. There's always people posting stuff that is very helpful out there. You've got to also make sure that what that information being shared is correct. But deep hydration, nutrition, breathing, mindfulness, and physical exertion, you do all those things, you can have an healthier lifestyle. Then if you want to be more focused on your exercise, you've got to do a crossover. You can't just do strength training because you won't be cardio fit. You can't just do C, but you've got to do a combination of three with mobility. If you do those 3 crossovers, then you've got a chance then of being quite athletic.
Yeah, that's a big focus just in the fitness section.
Yeah, very much so.
That's
So you
yeah,
take away just the fitness alone, you can look at just doing simple movement,
exactly. Yeah,
water, food, breathing,
yeah.
sleep.
I do believe you can become very healthy with just walking.
Yes.
If you're a day jobber but you walk an hour in the morning when you wake up and you start eating a little better, you could change your life. Such small increments.
Well, we talked earlier on about 10,000 steps, right? It's something a lot of people use, and every credit for people using that as an opportunity to go out and be physically active, moving. But I always try and advise if we can walk for an hour, or you got a chance then of doing many things, making your heart work, pumps the blood around your body, endorphins are created, so then you get that feel good factor in a
Yeah,
sense, that buzz about being moving and being out. If you work for an hour, got a good chance of losing fat content, of losing weight if that's what you want to do. And also by doing that, that sense of achievement can also be a positive thing for the mental health state. So by doing that, just on a simple front, can make a massive difference.
yeah. Well, I definitely agree with the whole just the statement of movement. I think movement is the foundation of life. It's everything moves, everything keeps going. You know, whether it be animals or plants, they're always constantly moving. They're always constantly doing something within themselves. And I think that's humans we're losing track of is doing something, getting out, moving in some sort of way or form. Even if it's just doing, I don't know, say you love skydiving, that's still a sport. That's still being active. You love snowboarding. You go once a year, but you do a run in the summer. Amazing. Just a simple walk to work instead of taking the bus. Massive improvement.
And those small steps at the start, or even if you do it over a period of time, are going to just completely start rebuilding you both physically and mentally.
Yeah. But then don't be hard on yourself when you have a day where you're like, oh, I'm gonna get a bus today, or oh, I'm not gonna go to the gym today, or I just don't have time to go to the gym. Don't be hard on yourself. There's no need to be having that balance in everything. It's the yin and the yang of everything, isn't it? I suppose. Whether that be nutrition, your fitness, your own self-esteem. If you feel like actually I need a day off physically, mentally, accepting, respecting yourself in that endurance.
It's been great discussing these topics with you. And I think sharing your knowledge, working in that environment, you can only pass on positive messages. And I think you mentioned just then about don't be hard on yourself. You know, I think we don't praise ourselves enough about all the small steps we take. Every small step builds up to a long distance. If we keep rewarding ourselves rather than punishing ourselves.
The saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day. So don't knock it down when you've dropped a brick or something. I don't know, but it's those simple movements. And I want to say actually, in correlation to this whole podcast, if anyone's out there, then with anyone watching, sorry, do have a look at a book which is exactly this. It's going into depth. A conversation. It's written as a conversation between a psychological professor and a ex-SAS sergeant. It's called Psychopathic Tendencies to Success. And that is a game changer. And that will go into depth about why mentality is such a big thing in fitness and everyday life as well.
If we could leave the listeners today with one principle from your individual journey, one mindset shift, what would that be?
Show up and get out of the house. That's all it is. I think it's when you don't want to do something, still do it, respect yourself in that way. And don't be hard on yourself if you do miss a day. Do look after yourself, but just keep showing up for you and for other people.
Well, that message definitely cuts through the noise. There's no messing around there, right? Healing isn't about perfection, it's about patience. And we've discussed a little bit today about routine and motivation, but also discipline being key. When done in kindness, we mentioned about rewarding yourself, but it becomes freedom. It becomes a way of life, a routine. Behavior changes. We talk about different people, different environments, different training routines, but they don't need to be brutal to build resilience. They just need to make one decision, like you said, quite apt. Just get up, let's go, just move. Because a movement alone would move your mind as well as your body. You know, when you get up and do something, your muscles are not the only thing activated. Your mind is also in the moment. So tomorrow morning, before the phone, before you do anything else, before the noise takes over your day, take 30 seconds of stillness, 10 deep breaths, 1 minute of movement, as we've discussed. This will remind you that you are alive. It's not just training, it's transformation. This is Trauma, Training and Transformation. I'm Dr. James Alder. See you on the other rep. If this episode resonated with you, please take a moment to share it with someone. who might need a reminder that movement can heal. You can listen to Trauma, Training and Transformation on Apple, Spotify and Amazon Podcasts, and watch the full episode on YouTube on @JamesAlder003. You can also follow me on my Substack, where I share helpful tips on how to improve your fitness, but also your mental well-being, and follow me on social media, Transformation Through Training. If you like the content that we've shared today, share the messages with your friends, subscribe, like the content, support me by buying me a coffee. The link is in the description below. Your support helps me to create these conversations and keep them going with the community. Thanks for listening. And remember, every rep counts, but the first one only starts in the mind. I'm Dr. James Alder. Thank you for listening to Trauma, Training, Transformation, exploring how movement heals the mind. See you on the next one.